folks, and welcome back. It is that time of year where we are not using much of this hydroponics tower anymore, and as I'm starting to get the spring crops in, it's just a lot to deal with on top of the huge projects we have going on outside. So today we are going to completely harvest all of the plants inside this tower, and I'll show you what I'm going to be doing with them. We're going to have a lot of excess of things as well as herbs that I'm going to have to preserve to be able to keep it long term. But I'm very excited to get one huge gigantic harvest out of this. That is really super fun to me, and I'm glad to have this part of the winter garden closed up and done with so I can 100% focus on outside. I do have a pot of just tap water in here that I'm gonna use to put the actual plant's roots in. A lot of these herbs I may dehydrate or freeze them, I'm not sure yet, but a lot of this tower is salad greens. And they just don't last that long. There are certain things you can do to make them last longer in the fridge, but honestly at the end of the day, we're just gonna have to eat a bunch of salads. But a real easy way to preserve these, because I'm getting them roots and all from my tower, is to just stick them in a pot of water, and they will last a lot longer on the counter. And I've noticed, because it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind for me, if I have things that I need to use on the counter, I'm much more willing to use them in dinner because I'll actually remember that they're there and I need to use them. So taking a bunch of this lettuce and sticking it in a pot on the kitchen counter is going to get it used quickly. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna start with the lettuces and try and keep them all to one pot and then put all of the herbs in another. I think that's what I'm gonna start with. Now harvesting during the winter is super easy. I'll just come in here and break off. See, this is a piece of arugula. So I would come in here and break off pieces of lettuce and kale and arugula and just take them to the kitchen and use them. But when we harvest the whole thing, we're actually gonna pull it, cup, roots, and all, out of the tower. These roots are not particularly very long. I've had them like 2 feet, 3 feet long before. Some of the bottom ones are a little bit longer, but I believe there was a little bit less growth this time around versus last year, because I did shut the pump off for 12 hours every night to conserve energy. This was the first time I've done that, first experiment to see if these plants would still be okay. So I could save a little bit of money in the process. And overall, it worked just as well. The only difference I saw was that the plants took a little bit longer to get to full size, probably because they weren't getting a 24-hour-a-day source of recycled nutrition. See, what I noticed was they were more like concentrated here where they sit in the cups, because the water would just sit in the cups all night, and that was the only water they would have for 12 hours. So there's like a larger mass of roots here at the bottom instead of the very long hanging roots that I got last year. This one was going to seed. And I just saw this guy. I'm not quite sure what this is, because it is very young and obviously came up later than all of these other plants did. And it smells a lot like holy basil. Which is really sad because I haven't been able to grow holy basil in my hydroponics tower for the last 2 years, and it finally came up and I'm about to take it out. What are the chances? this tower would be way more ideal if it wasn't here in a corner because I haven't seen these plants for a while. They look pretty good, but they've been stuck in this corner because I haven't rotated the tower, and it's hard to rotate it because it's full of water. It's okay now because I've turned the pump off. It's pretty low because I didn't fill it this morning. But I don't have another way to hang lights in the optimal conditions like I have right here in the corner of the wall. I would need some sort of like either hanging light stand or a light stand that comes off the tower that I can take away from a wall so I can walk the whole tower. That would be ideal. But this is not ideal. Still gives me food though. This one's so pretty. I believe I told you guys this last year during my first review of this hydroponics tower that it's really, really cool and this is absolutely doable inside of a house. I did forewarn you on the water leakage though, and that still holds true this year. I had several plants get really heavy for their cups and start dripping water onto the floor. Luckily, I don't have any carpet. This is tile. But if you were to put this on a carpeted surface, definitely keep that in mind. Accidents happen. See, this one had like a lot of dead leaves and it's going to seed. And I think this is two different plants, which is probably why there was a lot of death here. They were just fighting for nutrients. So I'm just gonna give this to the chickens. There's nothing on here I really want to eat anyways. We'll make chicken food pile. Woo. All right, I had to get another pot of water. Since I've been messing with this tower though, I left the room for a couple minutes. This whole room smells like basil. It's delightful. So I've got several lettuces that just straight to seed. This guy, it's ridiculous. I could possibly save seeds from these. I'm just not real interested in it. Got a lot of dead stuff here, but this is also still usable. I've got a ton of kale. I need to preserve all of this cilantro. But let's see how many good heads of lettuce we can get out of here. Alright guys, we are finished. This entire garden tower has been harvested and is ready to be cleaned and put away for next year. Look at this root system. Looks like a spider web. So let's get to the dining room and get some of this stuff put away and preserved. As I said, I'm gonna keep quite a bit of it in pots in water on the counter just so I make sure that I get through it. But the rest, like the herbs and stuff, I'm gonna be cutting up and either hanging or dehydrating, or perhaps I think of something else, I don't know. Let's get to it. Hey guys, so we are back and it is the next day. I did not get around to taking care of any of this yesterday. But I'm going to work on some of it today and just go over with you guys what I plan on doing with all of this food. So first and foremost, I am picking all of the leaves of kale off because I'm going to dehydrate the kale. I love kale chips, and Grady, surprisingly, likes kale chips as well. So this will be perfect. I've got about 5, I'm reconstituting red chili peppers on the stove from last year, and it's making the air spicy. So I've got about 5 heads of kale, which is perfect because I don't really like to run my dehydrator if I don't have a full load, just because it's a large draw on the electricity for an extended period of time. And I'm frugal. But this will be good. We'll have probably a full dehydrator's worth of kale chips, and that will take care of all of the kale in the tower. Kale chips are super easy to make. Even if you don't have a dehydrator, you can make them in the oven on like your lowest setting. Hopefully your oven will go down to the hundreds. If 150 is your lowest setting, that's probably pretty good. You could probably even like put it on the lowest setting and leave the door slightly cracked to let some of the heat out. But all you have to do for kale chips is to get your leaf of kale. You can de-rib it if you want. I don't worry about that. Cover it in some sort of like olive oil or whatever oil you want to use, and then just throw your seasonings on top. Grady last year wanted pizza flavored chips, so I went to the store and got some sort of pizza spice flavoring. I don't know what it was. They turned out pretty good though. And I guess you don't have to use oil if you don't want to. It'd just be like eating dried leaves if you didn't. But they're super easy and healthy to make and fun. The kids like them because you get to basically make your own potato chips, and you can use whatever flavor you want. So I do like kale chips a lot. But I don't make them that often. I don't grow a ton of kale unless it's in the winter time, because it is just too hot here in the summer to grow greens. But I'm about finished with this kale, and then we will move on to what I'm doing with the herbs. All right, first I'm going to do my best to transfer all of the heads of lettuce or the salad type lettuces into one. Because the salads I'm going to leave in water on the counter to use in cooking or salads or whatever. The herbs will be moved to a different pot, and I'm going to get through those with how I'm going to preserve them. And then the stalks of everything else, like all this kale, is gonna go right outside to the chickens. But I want to consolidate here so I can get some of these pots back in the kitchen, because I am using 4 large stock pots that I kind of need to cook with. And it was a big root system. I didn't really want to make a mess, and I'm making a mess. Get over there. There's not a lot of room down here. All right. Ta-da. A lovely pot of salad. That'll do. Now, I like working with a clean surface. It stresses me out if like my working area is a mess. I'm gonna take this outside right now to the chickens, and then we'll be back inside for the herbs. Okay, so as for the herbs, I've got a couple different applications depending on the herbs that I've got. So I know I have a cilantro, parsley, sage, Genovese basil, and summer savory. I think I've also got some Thai basil with very little flowers, and most of this Genovese basil doesn't look too hot. So there's not going to be many leaves that are harvestable off of that. With this garden sage, it's only one plant and it's a pretty small stand. I did grow garden sage last year and dehydrated a bunch of it, and I still have that. So I'm going to be chopping this up fresh and making a sage herbed salt with the Redmond sea salt I have. For this summer savory, it's an interesting herb. I've never actually purchased any at the store or used it other than this fresh stuff that I've grown, but it reminds me a lot of oregano in the way that it smells. I've used it in chicken dishes and things like that. I don't regularly grow it. It's just a fun, novel herb to have. As for the cilantro, I am not super interested in dehydrating it for dried use. I might, you know, pull a couple stands off and dry them out. But I was actually entertaining the thought of an herb salt with this. Now, hear me out for a second. I don't often use cilantro unless it's fresh, and then it's usually in Mexican dishes or tacos, things like that, where I need this bright spice in there. But what if I put it in a salt and then use that salt for my Mexican cooking? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. As for this basil, it is in pretty poor condition. Most of the good leaves are here at the top. So I will likely just be making fresh basil tea out of these good leaves and then throwing the rest of the plant away because these don't look too healthy. And that one's just dead. So I have enough leaves here to make probably a gallon of basil tea, and that will be a perfect ending to this garden shower. And as for the parsley, I really don't use parsley that often unless I'm, you know, putting together my own Italian seasoning for something, but I will likely just dehydrate it. That's what I usually do with all of my parsley. I like pesto. I've never made it, and I don't know if I love it enough to just make a bunch of it from a big harvest of parsley if I were to grow parsley that much. I don't think I would do it. That's one of those things where you have to be honest with yourself as a cook and like as just like someone who lives life and how much time you have on your hands and how much work you're willing to do for something. I am willing to do a ton of work for a big harvest of peppers, to preserve it and in every possible way, cook it every day with every meal because I love peppers that much. I don't think I love parsley that much, and I would just be adding more work onto my plate for likely something that I just got an Amazon package. And recently those like citizen drivers that drive their own vehicles and stuff and wear blue Amazon jackets, they just started coming to our area, and I live down a dirt road, so it's super weird to see random cars driving by. But it was fine. Anyways, I don't remember where I was. Oh, I was talking about not creating more work for myself. Yeah, so I've had people suggest pesto to me and stuff before with large harvests of parsley. I don't think I care about it that much. It's a pretty bunch of parsley though. It's one of the best looking plants I have in this whole pile. Probably because I never harvested anything off of it. All right guys, well I am going to get to these herbs. If you have any questions about how I usually preserve my herbs, I will link a video down below or up here somewhere. Somewhere will be the video that you want to see. I did a whole different ways that I preserved herbs last year. So that'll be available for you guys. And I believe this Saturday is going to be our last frost, folks. So it is time to get this garden in the ground, and I could not be more excited. Thank you for joining me yesterday and today, and I will catch you on the next one.